alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon everybody today. What an amazing day it's been here in the UK. It's mashallah, it's like back to summer for the last couple of days. It's been really warm here and humid here in the UK in the West Midlands. Let me just add Brother Yusuf Ismail is backstage. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Yusuf, thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. It's good to see you again,
There's
Mohammed.
been some terrible events taking place right now in Lebanon, and if you want to touch upon that, that is, I don't know if you brothers and sisters are aware of these so-called pager devices. I don't know if you brothers and sisters ever had any pagers. It's like a little, oh God, it's like
a walkie-talkie kind of thing, but where there's a one-way communication like a radio. I've never seen them before, but it's an old
a pager. No, it's like size of like a credit card device, and it has only a little screen, but you only can send messages to it. You only can receive. You get a missed call, then you got to go to your own phone to make, or a land phone or something to make the device. A pager is a device just to let you know that you're going to get a message or a phone call, and the phone call will come up onto the screen. Then you take the pager and then you go to a landline or a mobile and dial that number. So it's like a small little device for you to get like notifications, like phone calls, missed calls, and you can't receive a phone. You can't receive a phone call on it. You can't talk on it. It just you just get like
here's the images. Yeah. Here are the images, Brother Mohammed. If you can show, so
that's it. That's it. There were like on the right hand side here, you get a message. Somebody sending you a message, and then what you do, or a missed call or a telephone number will come up, and then you go to a landline or other telecom technology device, and you take that number from the pager and you call the number on the mobile phone. They're very old now, quite primitive, unfortunately. It's horrific what's happening right now, and how come the Western world are not outrightly calling this a terrorist attack on the people of Lebanon. It's over 450 or 500 people have been injured. 14 people have been killed with these devices. And it's just horrific what's going on. And for me, it's like the desperation of the Israeli army and the Zionist regime to prolong the war and to escalate the war into a wider scale and, prolong the war. It's shocking, Yusuf. I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, I just hope my device runs because my battery, for some reason, doesn't seem to be charging. Talking about pages and charging, I see what the problem is. It's the connection to the actual charger. Hope this is not booby trapped, but this is the situation. Yeah, I think I've now gone on. But well, basically, what's happened, and those who have been following, and it's been across the news. In Lebanon, there have been about 300 people that have been injured, devastatingly injured, and close to about 14. But I think the numbers are slightly higher, up to probably about 20 that have been killed as a result of exploding pages. Now, what these pages, as you could see, these sort of very primitive communication devices that were apparently, or the story goes, were used by Hezbollah. But from what I'm seeing now, even electronic devices used, for example, at the barbershop, because I believe that in Lebanon, this was a very common form of communication between ordinary people, used by people generally, not just by Hezbollah and so on. And so they've wounded close to more than 300 people. They're not all Hezbollah members. In fact, across the city of Lebanon, there were at least 300 wounded because of these particular exploding pages that essentially happened. And now what's supposedly happened is that Hezbollah, the Lebanese government, have clearly blamed Israel for Tuesday's attack. And if you look at these particular images, I've seen some of the images that are there on social media. The person has a pager next to him, or next to his ear for that matter, or he's communicating. It blows your head up. It blows you up completely. So it's a very vicious way to die. And I have absolutely no hesitation that this is basically what has come and has emanated directly from Israel. Now, of course, Israel hasn't officially commented on this, and the United States basically haven't. They look for all kinds of excuses in terms of what basically transpires and what happens. But the idea
There
of
is some breaking news. There is, sorry,
Yeah.
Yusuf, there is some exclusive and interactive.
If you can share that on the screen.
Yeah, let me just share that now. The company who, let me just, which one is it? So you got people from the EU government who deal with transportation and logistics of devices have sent out a tweet on X saying that the rechargeable pages were confiscated, I should say, and held for some time before being released and shipped to Lebanon. Their #Israel tampered with the pages and placed the 1 to 3 gram of explosives device in each pager. This is actually a Taiwanese, or I don't have to say that they're manufactured in Taiwan. These pages, and apparently Mossad got hold of these pages, and where the batteries are located at the bottom or at the back, they put 1 to 3 grams of explosives, and then what they had to ignite the explosive or the device is by sending a message. I think the message was sent at 3:30 p.m. Lebanese time, so all the devices would go off at once across Lebanon. And of course, when they got to Lebanon, they were reduced in price to make it out that they were affordable for the public and so forth. So people bought them, and then of course they were tampered with by the Israeli Mossad, and they're saying over 400 to 500 people have been injured, and 14 people are confirmed killed by these devices. It's absolutely a momentum time in history that we are witnessing right now, and these crimes are being committed in our time, brothers and sisters. Maybe in the past you'll probably hear about certain assassinations and so forth, but now this is happening in our lifetime. And I see the Western media, and unfortunately when I do watch some of the news clippings on YouTube, they try to portray it as it's justified, that these explosives put into civilian devices or devices that are attainable by anybody, that it's legitimate for Israel to do that. Now imagine, brothers and sisters, if that was a Muslim or a Muslim country or some terrorist country doing that. It'll be all over the news. It's absolutely hypocrisy at the highest standard. Double standards, of course, spills out all over the place with this. Brother Yusuf, I do apologize for cutting you up.
No, that's fine. I think it's important to know that this idea of targeted assassinations, which we're seeing, because this is what is clearly the case. I mean, we've already pointed out that Israel does deliberately kill people. It murders people deliberately in cold blood. It murders children in cold blood. So when I heard this, it's obviously shocking to hear and, monumentally outrageous, but it's not surprising at all. Nothing is surprising. Since its establishment, there's an interesting book which I urge people to look for. Maybe if you can find it online and put the picture up. It's a book that came out in 2018 by Random House. It's called Rise and Kill First. If you can probably find it on Amazon, The Secret History of Israel's Targeted Assassinations by Ronan Bergman. That's a book. It's called Rise and Kill First. The Secret History of Israel's Targeted Assassinations by Ronan Bergman. Ronenbergman. I'm going to try and find, my contact brother Shafayat Chowdhury has a copy, and I haven't read the book, but I've got the summary. And if I do get the PDF, I'll certainly share it with the viewers, and I urge the viewers would basically look at it. But in a nutshell, what this particular book says in the summation and the reviews that I've read is that in terms of targeted killings and targeted assassinations and the killing of identified individuals, mostly civilians, in order to attain specific political objectives, Israel has done this more than any other country in the Western world. If you look at the period of the past 7 decades, that's about 70 years, and this is over and above the number of people that have been brutally massacred. 1,000 been massacred, but when we're talking about individual targeted assassinations, the figures are something like 2,500 to 3,000 targeted assassination operations. And in that particular assassination operations, there have been several thousand people that have been murdered. So what Ronan Bergman, and he's an Israeli journalist, by the way, so people, and he also, in fact, a lot of these people, when somehow or the other, when you mention Cambridge and Oxford, even whichever part of the world you are in, it always has a prestigious standard. So Bergman, in fact, studied. He has a doctorate degree in history from Cambridge University, and he was privy to thousands of documents that were provided to him by various interviewees. He conducted thousands of interviews with high-level political officials, chiefs of intelligence agencies and operatives, and he sourced his material is thoroughly sourced. And what he did, and what he basically demarcated the fact that this planning and this implementation is not something which is an aberration. I want to know, people need to know this. This is not an aberration. An aberration is, for example, you've got a rogue soldier, or generally you are morally uprighteous, but you may have a rogue police force or a rogue police station. None of that. These are planned and systematically coordinated by various and a whole range of civilian and military intelligence agencies. And if you look at some of these individuals and some of these organizations, of course, I mean, the famous one is Mossad. That's the Special Operations Unit. They're dangerous. There's another one called Aman, which stands for the Intelligence Department of the IDF General Staff. There's the Sayeret Matkal, that's the Elite Commando Unit. And that basically is attached to the IDF Chief of Staff Office. There's the Flotilla 13, that's a Naval Commando Unit. And then more importantly, there's this entity calling itself Shin Bet. Shin Bet is a general security service. Now, for many of you viewers out there, you probably over the past several months have seen this thug, this known thug, who we've challenged and will definitely challenge to a debate, a chap who calls himself Musab Yusuf. He goes under the nickname Son of Hamas. You've heard of him, Mohammed, this chap that goes under Son of Hamas. And apparently the story goes is that his father was one of the Hamas members, and he made a defection. He goes under the name of Son of Hamas, and he's been embraced by the right-wing media in the United States and the United Kingdom, and people like Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, the famous Dr. Phil, there's the Oprah's Dr. Phil has embraced him as well and interviewed him and had him as a guest on many occasions where he was allowed to sprout his propaganda. But he was part of Shin Bet when he started off as a teenager. So what Shin Bet does is that they go into Palestinian encirclements and enclaves, and they pick up young kids and young children and teenagers. And this boy here, who was apparently his father was involved in some capacity in the Hamas foundation, they took this boy whilst his father was in jail, and they brainwashed him. And he was then involved in nefarious activities for and on behalf of Shin Bet, involved in assassinations, targeting individuals, spying on individuals. Um, their operation is solely within Israel and the occupied West Bank. But the point is that this goes to show that there is um, a systematic level of coordination in the gathering and the of intelligence and the implementation of targeted assassination operations. I mean, if you look at the years from 2000 right up until 2024, that is presently now, Israel has regularly, annually, every single year been engaging in targeted assassinations, but you don't hear about this. And after the Second Intifada, which started in September 2000, all these agencies carried out their killing operations, without a uniform set of targeting guidelines or any kind of common legal framework. For example, you had that famous case some years back where in one of the hotels in the Emirati states, I don't know how the Emiratis obviously let Mossad and whichever Israeli intelligence, they go in when come out when they want to, but they got an individual, and you clearly saw the footages. They went up the lift shaft, and they ended up suffocating this man to death with pillows. And it's a brutal way of killing. I mean, these are like these organizations and evil crime organizations you see in James Bond movies. This is the type of evil that you basically witness. But the fact that they operate without any kind of uniform guideline or a common legal framework means that they can do whatever they want to. So, for example, if you for example look at things like Shin Bet, they've known, and this is not now, to engage in targeted ticking time bombs, where they have certain devices in a particular area, or somehow the other hack into phones. Like in this instance here, what they did was that they hacked into the phones or these pages, and I don't know how it's done. Don't ask me about the technical know-how of how these animals did it, but they did it in such a way that if you start operating it or switching it on, it explodes. It explodes in your face. It's like, it's like a pen, or you switch on your cell phone and you press a particular number and it explodes in your face. Just straight like out of a James Bond kind of movie. I mean, this is the type of sickness that we are essentially dealing with. And so the reality of what people need to understand is that this idea of murdering people, of killing people, of assassinating people is not something that is new. So I urge you to get a book. The book is called, I think it's called Rise and Kill First. If I can just show it, Rise and Kill First.
I had it on the screen earlier, Yusuf. I found it.
You had it on the
screen. Yeah, I had it on the screen earlier.
Yeah, it's about 485 rands in South Africa. If you've had it on the screen, that's good. It's about 485 rands. I don't know how many pounds that is, but I urge people to get this. It's a gripping book by Ronan Bergman. He's an Israeli journalist, and he speaks at length about the history of these kind of assassinations. So there's nothing new in relation to this. There's nothing that is unprecedented. There's nothing unprecedented because Israel has this entire history. It's got a whole long history of various individuals linked to its assassination attempts. I mean, if you take into example, and I'll give you a list of people. In 1960, you had the famous individual by the name of Adolf Eichmann. You heard of Adolf Eichmann, the hunt for Adolf Eichmann. He was apparently a German Nazi official. The talk goes that he was one of the organizers, or certainly one of the leading figures. in Nazi Germany. He was captured by the Allies in 1945, but subsequently escaped and then settled in Argentina. And in Argentina, basically, he was tracked down by Mossad and they murdered him. They killed him. Then there was Bassam Abu Sharif. He was injured in Beirut in 1972. And here he was injured when he opened a package containing a book. When he opened the book exploded. Exploded. He survived, but he lost all his fingers. He was left deaf in one ear, and he was blind in one eye. The individual's name is Bassam Abu Sharif. He was, and there was no Hamas, but he was a spokesperson for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. The PFLP was not a so-called Islamist radical outfit. It was a Christian socialist front. They attacked him. In 1972, you had Mahmoud Hamshari, who was a representative of the PLO. He was killed in Paris when a bomb was planted under a telephone and remotely detonated. In 1996, you had Yahya Ayash. He, earned the nickname of the engineer. They killed him. In 2000, you had Sami Malabi. He was a Fatah activist from the refugee camps in Ramallah. He used a mobile phone, but how they did it is that when he rang the number, the phone rang, then he put it to his ear, and the phone exploded. It blew his head off. Blew his head off. This phone blew his head off. And then more importantly, you have in 2020, there was this Iranian nuclear scientist. His name is Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. I think that's his name, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. He was an Iranian nuclear scientist, and he was assassinated in Iran by a remote-controlled machine gun mounted on a car. I mean, imagine this, a remote-controlled machine gun mounted on a car. He was traveling in a bulletproof vehicle. He had 3 security personnel vehicles when he heard what was sounding like bullets hitting his car. And after he reportedly left the vehicle, the kind of a remote control machine gun just opened fire and killed him. I mean, you couldn't believe this. In fact, just have a look at this. I think this is the article here. It's on Sky News. I'll try and share this and remove the adverts here. This is the article here. So people need to know that what you see here is not at all surprising. It's shocking. It's horrific. Nobody's going to basically speak out against it. If you're from the Western media, a government. This is an individual, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. This is on Sky News, so we're not making it. Iranian nuclear scientist assassinated by a remote control gun mounted on a car. I mean, imagine that. Imagine the sophistication that is required to get this and the accuracy. Assassinated by remote control. This is a situation, and then killed in broad daylight, and that's the aftermath. Look at the damage this remote control machine gun essentially does. And apparently it stated that he was hit at least 3 times in an attack that lasted around 3 minutes, meaning this remote control machine gun continued its attack for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I mean, so it's got a long history of killing people, murdering people, massacring people. I mean, there's nothing untoward. We shouldn't be surprised. This is basically business as usual for the state of Israel. The one thing which is of concern, at least from my perspective, is that although people are talking that certainly the resistance is strong and going, but the response from Iran has been somewhat subdued. And even to a certain extent from Hezbollah. Now, I understand there are certain limited attacks on Israeli soldiers, but not at the scale or the level which, of course, could lead to a total decimation of the IDF and completely stop the genocide. And I think the reality of the situation is because, I mean, although Hezbollah's armaments and military might is far more sophisticated than Hamas. But I mean, it pales in comparison to the Israeli war machine. But certainly they are a threat. And so whatever resistance is now offered against this evil regime, people should in fact support. And this is a reality of what, and I mean, this is the reality of what we see here. Um, it's a shocking situation in terms of the daily occurrences in reality. My concern is that these pager explosions, may of course also cause some sort of immense form of embarrassment for the resistance for Iran, for that particular matter, which I think at some level um, does offer its support to Hezbollah and Hamas, although one is Shiite, the other is Sunni. And even though Israel hasn't claimed direct responsibility, um, the point is that it shows the level of sophistication that Israel has in doing what it is doing. I mean, the point is that they're failing in their war in Gaza. They haven't got rid of Hamas. They're only succeeding in killing Palestinian children and Palestinian women and Palestinian civilians and men and babies. And so they've got to, and they're trying to show face by coming up with the so-called James Bond-like method of of remotely detonating, these kind of anti-personnel mine type devices. And to the Lebanese people themselves, I mean, they would obviously view this as a surprise and certainly a shock, because Israel is now hitting and targeting Hezbollah targets deep inside Lebanon, deep into Lebanon, which hasn't happened before. It hasn't happened before. And so that would be possibly some cause of concern and embarrassment in relation to that. And again and again, Hezbollah's response has been somewhat muted. It hasn't been as aggressive as people would have wished. Some have praised Iran in terms of their subdued response. The point is that in the face of open genocide, what do? You should fight back and you should resist. This is the problem that we've got. So it's interesting, and we'll see over the next few days how Hezbollah will now respond to the pager attacks. And that would be obviously should be of concern for Israel. They are losing soldiers, by the way. They are losing soldiers in Gaza through unsophisticated boys and men that are targeting them. These boys are wearing sandals, and the resistance is taking these tanks out and ambushing them, and so that should continue. So they are losing a lot of soldiers, the IDF.
Yeah, I just want to echo, Brother Yusuf, what you just said regarding these pages. There's always up-to-date information coming out, how many people are getting killed and injured. The UN are going to hold an emergency meeting on Friday regarding the usage of these civilian or these devices, which are, of course, uncalled for, probably illegal. And also, to the best of my knowledge, I'm just trying to catch up with the news. I know Palestine has been recognized now as a state by the United Nations, or a member of the United Nations. And also, I just posted it earlier in the chat that MBS has just announced that he will not continue with making links with Israel until Palestine becomes a state of its own. So there's interesting geopolitics going on at the same time. I think this act of terrorism in Lebanon has really going to have a huge impact across the country or the world, because if you are able to put an explosive device in a mobile phone now, or some type of electrical device, and you're going to be justified in doing that, what stops other rogue or terrorist organizations doing the exact same thing? So I think this is a turning point of the war. I really think what you said there. I think Israel is losing the war, and the only way they can continue and expand the war is start to attack Lebanon, and and that will kind of prolong the prime minister's rule. Because I think he knows the year mark is coming up. October the 7th is just a stone throw away, and it's been a year. The Israeli army is supposed to be one of the most well, not highly trained, but highly advanced when it comes to weapons, and being constantly funded by the Western countries, and still they cannot finish Hamas off, or the
Mm.
civilians of Palestine and in Gaza. This is really profound. That what you said there, Yusuf, like you got Hamas resistant fighters with sandals and hardly any type of armor or military equipment, and they still are, alhamdulillah, still doing a pretty damn good job in smashing the IDF. And I can't see it ending, and I just can see it really expanding into different areas. But now this has to be a turning point now for Lebanon and Iran, uh, to stop making empty threats. Or I'm thinking that Iran and other countries are taking the lead of Russia, which are patiently waiting to see what's going to happen with these influx of NATO troops and the long range missiles. And I think it's a game of chess right now. I think everybody is waiting to
Yeah.
see, will this lead to World War III? And of course, World War III will lead to nuclear war and end of
Well,
civilization.
well, look at the world itself. I mean, I've sent you that map. If you look at the map that's just been shared here, this is a list of the world, of all the countries that have recognized the state of Palestine. So basically, those countries that don't, and when we talk about those countries that don't, it's not the people that don't, it's the regime. So in a minority of a minority of countries that don't basically recognize the state of Palestine. And so this is a reality that the entire world will have to contend. So if this
How
breaks out,
recent is, sorry, Yusuf, how recent is this map? Is
this is
this something?
2024. This is
Okay.
2024.
Mm.
This is June 2024. In fact, if I could just try and share I'm just trying to get here. This is June 2024. If I could just go back, let me just see here. Yeah, that as of June 2024, the state of Palestine recognized sovereign state by 146 of the 193 member states of the United Nations, or just over 75% of all UN members. I'll just share I don't like always looking at some of these Wikipedia outlets, but they generally accurate. I'll share this here. If you can see, put this on the screen. Here we are. This is the screen. I've just shared it now with you. Yeah, here's it here. This is as of June 2024. State of Palestine is recognized by 146 of the 193 members, and this is basically on the official websites. And then, of course, you've got a situation. This is the General Assembly archived documentation. So it's been declared, and as you can see, this is a list of the countries that are basically recognizing it, and the countries that do not. Among the G20 countries, it's 9 countries: Argentina, Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and Turkey, as well as permanent invitee Spain, have recognized the state, while 10 countries, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, and of course these are all allies, have not. So these countries support some sort of two-state solution. I don't know how that will work, but generally speaking, uh, this seems to have there seems to be a shift of balance. But you can see the countries that don't, including your country, by the way. That is your country. The United Kingdom is the uh, Great Britain is a kind of the prime architect of all the chaos that you see in various parts of the world, but particularly in this region of the world, in the Middle East. So no surprises. Then, of course, you've got Canada and the United States, Mexico, and I mean this is Greenland, so you can't take that into consideration really. So the real country, the real powers that of any significance that do not recognize Palestine are here. You've got Canada and United States, not so much Mexico, although it's included. You've got them here in Western Europe. That's your major countries: France, United Kingdom, Germany. Not surprisingly, Germany. Italy, there's a massive support for Palestine, but the right-wing government does not. But the Italians generally do, and then of course you've got Australia, so Western Australia. So it's a very small, and in the bulk of the world, the whole, virtually the entire Latin America, virtually the whole of Africa, and virtually the entire of Eastern Europe and Asia, and of course you've got countries here like Norway and Sweden, basically the Scandinavian countries that have generally been traditionally liberal, that have moved, and of course you've got the archipelago here in East Asia and Indonesia and Malaysia and all these areas, and then of course you've got this block. The exceptions here are South Korea, for example. I mean, even India, for that particular matter, strangely enough, although you've got a large number of Indian soldiers that are in the IDF. But this is the reality of what you see here. So it's a massive shift. And those that are basically against the state of Palestine and in support of this illegitimate Israeli regime know full well that you are in a minority. You are completely in a minority. So I don't know how World War III would happen. I mean, in World War II, the world was fragmented. There were certainly neutral powers, but there was not the kind of unanimity and consensus on an issue globally, at least on the Palestinian issue, as you see now. I mean, people had different views. I mean, you had even initially, prior to the commencement of the war, you had your prime minister, what's his name, Neville Chamberlain, who was very close. He was very close to Hitler. In fact, you had one of the members of the royal family in the 1936 Olympics going and shaking hands and sitting in the grandstand with Adolf Hitler. So this is the reality. So the world was different there. So can we have a cataclysmic World War III? Noam Chomsky has always warned about the potentials of nuclear warfare. I don't know. I don't like making these predictions. I'm not that qualified enough to make such kinds of predictions. I'm not a political analyst per se. So it's difficult to say what the outcome is. But it's clear that Israel wants to expand this conflict and would like to have a situation where it can draw Iran into this conflict itself and broaden it. Of course, it'll have the United States. The one way this can stop is if the US basically gives via phone call. If the United States states, we, as of now, will refuse to basically supply any weapons, any armaments, nothing, that ends. And they could stop this immediately. But they won't and they cannot, because they've got a powerful Jewish lobby that controls and financially monitors each and every single one in Congress. So that won't happen. So whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, that won't happen.
You made some very strong points there, and it's quite shocking how much of the world actually does recognize Palestine. I actually thought that was probably an old map, but yeah, it's 2024.
No, it's a new map. This is a new map. It's fairly new.
I'm shocked. There is some breaking news coming out now, and basically you got Israeli political commentators stating that this attack that has taken place in Lebanon, it was absolutely wrong, and now the Israelis are living in fear from a blowback from Hezbollah and possibly Iran. And it's called Ori Goldberg has just come on Al Jazeera and mentioned that the Israeli public don't want a war with Hezbollah. Just the other day when I was watching, actually myself watching Sky News, and the Houthis sent a missile over and it actually reached into the heart of Israel. You saw images of some, and I've kind of felt sorry at the same time, but then you saw the Israeli members of the public are sort of hiding behind bushes, hiding behind cars. And I'm thinking, look at these cowards, and then, you got the situation in Palestine where innocent people are getting bombed in tents and refugee camps and whatnot. And you got these people hiding from a missile going over their head, in the sky, going towards a particular destination. Yeah, but you can see the political atmosphere now in Israel. I really definitely think they are highly concerned. And I think this will play a huge impact now in the Prime Minister's role. I think he will be dethroned. I really think, because I think he has definitely he's gone the wrong way in kind of like de-escalating the situation. You got some before I bring the Muslim apologist on, you want to
share this video from Democracy Now, because they gave a pretty good coverage. If I could just share this and expand the screen as well. This is Democracy Now this evening.
This is Democracy Now, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Lebanon, at least 12 people were killed, over 2,800 injured Tuesday when electronic pagers used by members of Hezbollah exploded at the same time. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. Israel's widely believed to be behind the attack. Hezbollah vowed to retaliate against Israel as fears grow of a broader regional war. According to a report by Reuters, Israel's Mossad spy agency had managed to plant explosive material in a batch of pagers bought in recent months by Hezbollah. The pagers were sold under the name of the Taiwanese brand Gold Apollo, but the company said the pagers were actually made by a firm in Budapest that had a license to use Gold Apollo name. Victims of the attack included a 10-year-old girl who died when her father's pager exploded. The Iranian ambassador to Lebanon, Mujtaba Amani, was also injured by an exploding pager. The New York Times reports he lost an eye in the blast. The nature of the simultaneous attack shocked many in Lebanon.
What happened yesterday shocked us. It was unimaginable. No one could have thought that pagers could explode like that. The scene was shocking, how people were torn apart right in front of you.
Torn apart.
Hezbollah relied on pagers in part to avoid Israel's surveillance of other communication networks like cell phones. Lebanese lawmaker Tony Frange Jr. condemned the attack as an act of terrorism.
Catastrophic repercussions for the crisis today, but this, as I have previously explained with several stations, is terrorism being practiced against Lebanon. And we, and I believe the majority of the Lebanese people, do not submit to the language of terrorism.
Earlier today, U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken said the U.S. did not know about nor was involved in what he called, quote, these incidents. Blinken made the comments in Cairo, Egypt, where he held a joint news conference with the Egyptian foreign minister and met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Axios reports Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant called U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin shortly before the operation began. We go now to Beirut, Lebanon, where
He called him before the operation began. What did they talk about? And so you can see this particular piece. This is on Democracy Now. It's you go to the website and there's an entire article. It gives you the script as well as the entire program. For those who are interested in watching Democracy Now. And so the reality of the situation is that, as you basically state here, is that this shows the fact that when it comes to Israel, the rules of war, as you can basically state here, are totally irrelevant. They've always been irrelevant to the Israel and the Zionist movement before the creation of Israel, after the creation of Israel, during the existence of Israel. The laws of war and decency and, I may add, morality just simply don't apply to them. And when you see these people like Blinken and John Kirby and this other Indian guy, I forget this guy's name, the scumbag, slimebag that is regularly giving these press conferences. It's shameful. It's like listening to clear vomit, because they find all kinds of justification in terms of what they see. I mean, they are questioned repeatedly. For example, about the death of the journalist. You know, the death of the U.S. citizen, the Isinor citizen that was killed by Israel.
Shot in the head. Yeah.
Shot in the head. At press conference. I just wanted to see if I can get this here. Press conference by Saeed. Where are we? I don't seem to. I think it's on the Middle East Eye, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's a Middle East Eye that that kind of generally covers it. And what they always talk about is they talk about aberrations. They talk about the fact that Israel doesn't deliberately target civilians. They talk about all kinds of excuses. All forms of excuses are basically even when Israeli settlers are engaged in demonstrations, Israeli settlers are engaged in the worst kind of atrocities. Nothing is done by it. I'll just share this one clip. It's short, but I want people to see what we are dealing with, what sickness we are dealing with, and what hypocrisy we are dealing with. I want you to have a look at this, and then we'll move to the guest before I just open up the platform. Here we are. I just want to. This is a journalist, and he's pressured here. If you can probably open the screen, share it on the screen. Have you got it open, Mohammed?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah. So this is here's this journalist. Yeah, that's his name. This is a slimebag that I'm talking about. Vedant Patel, the U.S. State Department spokesperson. This scumbag here. He's been questioned by a well-known Palestinian journalist that's always at the press conferences about, in this instance, the killing of a U.S. citizen. And listen to the response of this slimebag. I want you to listen to it.
Act of killing an American citizen protesting, the aggression of, let's say, the Israeli occupation army. So you condemn the act of the killing itself. You condemn that act?
Let's just be very clear. Of course, we would condemn the death. The death of any American citizen is heartbreaking. But let's be just very precise and clear.
There has to be a but. He has to butt it.
Here that I am not going to speculate on what transpired on Friday, as those
always when it comes to Israel killing, there's no speculation. They're not going to speculate what really happened. But when it comes to, for example, Iran, for that matter, or Hamas, or what happened on October 7th, it's clear cut. Even the lies that were promoted, as you can see by people like Blinken and so on.
Facts, and those processes are still being determined and adjudicated, and we're going to let that process
determined and adjudicated, and we're going to let that process play out. Determined and adjudicated by who? By the murderer, the Israeli murderer. They're going to determine and adjudicate it.
Play out. It is troubling. It is tragic.
No, it's not troubling. It's not tragic, because what is troubling and tragic is basically like a tsunami or a flood or a natural disaster. That is troubling and tragic.
And it's certainly there is a responsibility here to share as much information as possible, so that Miss IG's family has the most appropriate accounting of what exactly transpired and what happened here. But Saeed, there is a process, and I'm just not going to get ahead of that. And I will, I'm not going to speak on behalf of our partners in Israel.
Actually,
partners.
And the act of the killing, the murder of an American citizen.
Of course, Saeed, the murder of any American citizen, we would take issue with.
Okay. So let me just follow up. In Beta, there are protests in Beta every day. And in fact, 14 have been killed in the last maybe 12 months or so in Beta. It's a very peaceful protest. There's never any stones thrown out and so on. There are actual eyewitnesses that saw exactly what happened. So do you suspect that maybe there's some entity or some other person that have fired the shot other than an Israeli soldier?
Zaid, I think you and other colleagues, of course, this is your briefing. You can ask as many questions as you would like. You can ask the same questions as many times if you would like. That's not going to change my answer, which is that one, around the specifics of what transpired, important work is continuing to being done to ascertain what exactly happened. And
important work is being done to ascertain. Important work being done by who? The Israeli state?
Are going to let that process play out. As I've said, as it relates to making those findings public, we expect that to happen as soon as possible. We expect that process to be thorough, transparent, and it to be as robust as it can be. But beyond that, I'm just not going to speculate from up here what happened or why or any of the reasonings. As I said to Rabia, eyewitness accounts are, of course, helpful, key, informative to all of this, but there is a process in place, and we will let that process play out.
So would you rely on the eyewitness accounts, or you just rely on the Israeli?
I am not going to speak to the process.
That's fine. I just want to take.
And again, I just want to reiterate again that we are working closely to ascertain the facts, but there is not a State Department led investigation that is going on as it relates to
because
this.
The record, Vedant, is really quite abysmal, and when it comes to Israel investigating itself on the killing of Americans. I mean, I can take you back to March 16, 2003, when Rachel Corrie, a Jewish American, was killed by a bulldozer, in plain sight of everybody, and the Israelis only came back with an answer in 2012, and it was just like nothing there answer kind of a thing. And we saw this happen with Omar Assad. We saw this happen with Shireen Abu Akleh when it was killed. And you guys came out on July 4th, 2022 on a holiday, and you said that the intention was not there. So what guarantee do we have that this particular investigation that saw the murder of a 26-year-old American, Aisha Noor Egi, so we saw her murder. Everybody, there are a lot of accounts and so on. What guarantee do you have that this will be carried out, the investigation will be carried out thoroughly, fairly, transparently, and would lead to the proper result as far as you're concerned?
Saeed, I'm not going to color any of these findings until we see them. So I will just leave it at that, and not going to get ahead of the process here.
So do we have? I mean, I'm sorry, but let me just. Do we have any evidence from the past that Israel actually comes through on these investigations?
I will let the IDF and the Israeli government speak to their own accountability processes. I'm not going to get into that, but at every possible measure, we reiterate the reminder that civilian deaths need to be minimized, not just in Gaza, but also when actions are being conducted in the West Bank, that it is critical and vital to peace and stability in the region, taking that moral and strategic imperative.
My last thing on this, I mean, when it comes to the Israeli killing of Americans, Americans that are being killed by Israel and their families, they feel that these Americans are the children of a lesser God because Israel is committing the crime. Israel is committing the murder. Is that true?
It's not. Look, it's not true. Saeed, I'm not sure I fully understand your question.
I mean, there are less American than, let's say, when Israel commits, it is really the identity of the killer rather than the identity of the killed, so to speak.
So, again, I'm not sure I fully comprehend what you're asking, but let me just be pretty clear.
Well, what a slime bag. What a scumbag this guy is, Vedant Patel. Do you see how he was taken to task by the journalist Saeed in terms of what you see? The last point, whenever Israel kills someone, it is the identity of the killer, in the case Israel, that is more important than the person that's been killed. In any other conflict in any part of the world, you always are concerned about the victim. But in the Israeli situation, when Israel engages in the murder, it's not Israel that's on trial. It's basically the murdered victim that is basically on trial, and the victim on trial. And this is a kind of nauseating discourse that we want to destroy and eradicate. Indeed.
That was interesting back and forth, to be honest. That it does make my blood boil. We've got people writing in the chat. It definitely does. We've got the Muslim apologist joining us. Assalamu alaikum. The Muslim apologist, how are you, brother?
Yeah, walaikum salam. I'm glad to be here, to both of you. Salam alaikum. Yeah.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I think you are in Malaysia, the Muslim apologist. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
So
Yeah.
how are you watching the news, and what kind of information are you receiving regarding the genocide that's taking place in Palestine?
Oh, here in Malaysia, we are overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. So we always have the latest updates about Palestine. If you were to go into downtown KL, you will find rows of Palestinian flags flying from the mosques, from the walls, from the buildings. There are some places where people actually wear shirts and t-shirts, showing symbols of Palestine and with slogans such as "Free Palestine." And yeah, recently there was this brother from Australia. He's a Palestinian. He's of Palestinian descent. He came to Malaysia to watch to witness a football match actually, but he was also a fan of my channel. So I met him and I brought him around Kuala Lumpur, and he was amazed at the support and the love that the Malaysian people here has given Palestine. And we have always stood by Palestine, and we will always stand by Palestine, because our history and Palestinian history aren't too different. In fact, if things were to go south for us Malaysians, we might have ended up like Palestine.
SubhanAllah. That's interesting. We have put the link in the chat. If there's any non-Muslims who want to come on and maybe challenge us or have got something pleasant to say, feel free to come on.
Well, thank you for that, Muslim apologist. I think I have seen some of your videos, and you are on our mutual group with Brother Mohammed. Just out of interest, maybe if you one day have the time, have a look at the book called The Consumption of Kuala Lumpur by Professor Ziauddin Sardar. Phenomenal book where how the Western governments and the Western society and the capitalist oligarchies wanted to go out and destroy and plan to take over the Malaysian economy. But that's just an aside.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Speaking about books, I actually wanted to mention a book by, I don't know whether you heard of him. It's Al-Mahum Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi. He wrote a book called Islam.
Of course. Ismail Al-Faruqi, phenomenal.
Yes, that's right. He was Palestinian American, so he wrote this book called Islam and the Problem of Israel. And this book was written in 1980. And it's amazing that most of the things that he mentioned in this book are actually unfolding right now in front of our eyes. And imagine this, it was written 40 years ago. So he's really a visionary. He really saw what was going to happen if this illegal state, this terrorist state of Israel were to be allowed to exist. You see, so I always find
he was murdered. People don't know he was also murdered. He was assassinated. Him and his wife.
Oh yes, he was. Yes, he was assassinated. And I actually wrote a Wikipedia entry on the murder of the Faruqis. And if you people in the chat and you yourself, brothers, you can look up the article "Murder of the Faruqis" on Wikipedia and read the story of how they were brutally murdered in their home in 1986. I wrote that article.
I think is it this one here? Is it this article here? I've just shared something here. Murder of the Faruqis.
Yep, this is the article I wrote. Yes, and it's approved.
Alhamdulillah. This was in 1986. Him and his wife both murdered brutally. I'll certainly look at the article, but yes, indeed, Ismail Faruqi was a phenomenal, and of course, a phenomenal Islamic scholar, besides being a Palestinian activist. I mean, one of the earlier Palestinian activists in the 80s and 70s, together with people like Edward Said and so on. So I'll certainly share this.
Yeah.
Those that can see this, have a look at this on Wikipedia. And share some of your thoughts also on some of this was a phenomenal book, The Cultural Atlas of Islam. This is if those of you who are involved in dawah and Islamic work.
I wrote this Wikipedia entry too, by the way. I wrote this entry too.
Okay, great stuff.
Yep, I did. Yeah,
So
most of the
have
information that you find on Wikipedia that's related to Al Faruqi and his wife were written by me. In fact, the links that you see there, Ismail Faruqi and Louis Lamia Al Faruqi, were also written by me too.
Okay, phenomenal, great stuff. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, but this is the book, The Cultural Atlas of Islam. This is the 1986 edition. I urge all da'is, scholars, students of knowledge, get a copy of this book. Total guide, on the Islamic world and other material. So thanks for sharing some of your thoughts.
Talking about books, Yusuf, I'm just talking about books.
Yeah, sorry.
I've just, got my 2 books, signed books, which I'll be sending to you, Yusuf, and the sister. I'm just waiting to pick the books up, and hopefully I'll get your addresses and I'll post them off hopefully this weekend, inshallah.
Yeah,
apologist.
Yeah, I was going to say that, in the entry of the Cultural Atlas of Islam, if you scroll down below, there's actually a box, an info box below where you can see all the articles related to Al-Mahum Faruqi's thought, and all his books are listed below as well. Yeah.
No, we'll certainly have a look at this. For those, and speaking about books, and again, I'm from South Africa, so the prices will obviously be depending on your countries. But for those of you who are interested in knowing on the Palestinian saga, I mean, certainly there's so much of material online. But get yourself a copy. I have been in contact with Brother Rashid Khalidi, Dr. Khalidi from United States. He's written, and these are the books. These are the books that Brother Mohammed, if you can share, for those who want it. And this is a South African price on Take Lot and Loot. It's called The 100 Years War on Palestine, A History of Settler Colonialism by Rashid Khalidi. From, if you want to have a kind of a good, decent overall assessment of the Palestinian crisis, get a copy of his works. But if there's one book that you can get, and I don't know what the price range in your country is, but you'll probably get it on Amazon or get it by Kindle if you have an electronic device or a tablet to read it. Get a copy of The 100 Years War on Palestine if you want to really know the saga in terms of what happened, a kind of an introductory knowledge. Another good book that you could probably look at, another good book that I could probably share is this here. I don't know if I can share the screen here. Where we Bitter Harvest. Let's just see here if we can do that. Bitter Harvest. I'll just try and share the screen. Bitter Harvest by Sami Hadawi. Bitter Harvest by Sami Hadawi. Can you share the screen, Brother Mohammed, or do I not have anything here?
It's not there yet. It's not there.
Let me just try and see if I can share this. Where we Bitter Harvest. Yeah, get a copy of this. This is the book. Here we are. Bitter Harvest by Sami Hadawi. That's a book. If you want, it's still maybe available. But this is the book. It's called Bitter Harvest by Sami Hadawi. If you want to get a copy of the book, order it online or via Amazon. It gives you a good, at least overall view of the conflict of Palestine from 1914 right up until 67. So I highly recommend this particular book for those of you who want to have a kind of a basic overall view of the particular subject. That you won't go wrong on that particular aspect. Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. We are going to come to an end of the show. We have put the link out. It doesn't seem anybody wants to come on and jump on and say a few words. Yusuf, are you okay for time or another 5-10 minutes?
No, we can go for about 5-10 minutes. It's not a problem. I'm in your hands.
Alhamdulillah. Just a quick reminder, the Muslim Apologist has got a debate confirmed on this channel at 5 p.m. UK time on Saturday. It will be, if you want to talk about it, brother Muslim Apologist, feel free to talk about your upcoming debate.
Yeah, it's going to be about the issue of sin and salvation in Islam and Christianity. So I've already prepared my opening statement. I just need to put it in slides and inshallah by tomorrow, I guess I should be ready for the debate. Yeah, it's actually ironically it's also a pet topic of Al-Mahum Faruqi as well. So I'll be drawing upon a lot of sources from him from Al.
So that'll be a live debate on Cov F and 5 p.m. this Saturday, and his opponent will be Matthew, who is a respectable gentleman. He's always polite and very courteous. So stay tuned for that. It'll be a formal debate. It'll be a time debate, and inshallah ta'ala, really looking forward to hosting that debate. And this Sunday, I don't think I'll be going to Speaker's Corner. I've got some things to do, unfortunately. Sometimes going to Speaker's Corner on a regular basis, especially, can really hurt your brain cells. All the shouting and all the nonsense can really overburden a person. So this Sunday, I'm going to take a break from Speaker's Corner.
How bad is it anyway? I don't have no idea how bad.
Oh, brother, it's brother Mohammed Imtiaz came. The one who does the streams regarding the Qadianis. Alhamdulillah, the Ahmadis never turned up, even though he announced it early. They never turned up. But Speaker's Corner, it can be very, highly fueled atmosphere. It's really not for everybody. Sometimes, if you want a genuine discussion, you need to take somebody to one side instead of in the main crowd, because you got a lot of hecklers there.
Yeah, but it's on my bucket list to be at Speaker's Corner one day, inshallah. I'm actually thinking of going there next year if it's possible. Yeah, inshallah. Yeah. Inshallah.
May Allah make it easy for you, brother. I don't think I'm gonna remove the link in the chat now, and inshallah
we've got no one that's in the chat today, right?
Yeah, hopefully no one. We can hopefully come to an end. Brothers and sisters, we will continue to do these streams, inshallah. Continue on next week, inshallah, with Brother Yusuf Ismail. And in the next couple of days, we'll see what the outcome of all these attacks are going to be. Is there going to be a response from Hezbollah and Iran and other countries? I think there will be some type of response, but it depends how measured it will be and how deep the attack will go into the heart of Israel. Will they really penetrate Tel Aviv? I'm very surprised that the Houthis released a missile and it actually reached into heart of Israel. And I think there's more to come. And also I did hear that the Houthis actually stopped a couple of boats that were sending, or ships or containers that were sending fuel to Israel. That is very interesting also. And I do feel, I think the Yemenis or the Houthis have really stepped up the game. And it's very interesting how everything will play out. I really think that this is the beginning of the end. I really do think for the Israeli government and the genocide that's taking place from these attacks using these devices. No other government can point fingers at anybody else for doing the same thing. I know the Western media have stayed quiet. Here in the UK, they think it's funny. They actually think Israel are justified to do what they have done, using devices to, murder people.
Do they still? Are you telling me the news reports have justified these attacks? I haven't seen a lot.
Yeah, they're saying it's justified. Yeah, they're saying it's justified. Yeah, we are,
and I support what you just stated. The Houthis have really upped the game, and I think we need to support them. The same with Hamas and Hezbollah, for that particular matter. We need to support whatever resistance you can. I mean, it's against this Israeli regime, this belligerent regime. We do this ideologically, and your channel has been in the forefront. I'm actually glad that you told me that at Speaker's Corner, people have started recognizing the fact that you're one of the few channels out there that are, and certainly now with the Saudi South African Debate Initiative, that are trying to make this a kind of a regular, consistent issue, that we haven't let this die down. Some of the bigger channels, when the genocide first started, and it was topical news, and they wanted to jump on the bandwagon, and they just simply died down, and that becomes problematic. That's why I haven't, although this is not my forte per se, but I've spent a lot of time, at least over the past few months, together with you and a few others on other channels as well, discussing this issue, because I think it's a topical issue to discuss. It's something that we need to regularly keep appraised of, and something that people need to be aware of, and provide that alternative information. So I applaud your courage. It's certainly in a country like yours, where if you support Hamas or basically support the resistance, you could be jailed. I believe Richard Medhurst was jailed. Richard Medhurst and a couple of others. And I think probably, you should get onto one of these right-wing media outlets like Talk TV and GB News, Brother Mohammed, and probably let them interview you and give them a piece of your mind.
No, I think, mashallah, you're more eloquent in speech than me, Brother Yusuf, mashallah. I wouldn't know where to start, to be honest, but my memory is not the best. But I was really taken back by the greetings of the brothers at Speaker's Corner, especially the people who own some of the channels. They really commended us for the work that we're doing. And they stated, EF Dawa, definitely EF Dawa mentioned to me that they did a talk at Speaker's Corner regarding the situation in Palestine, and straight away they saw a drop in their viewers, in their subscriptions and so forth. They definitely...
How do you get shadow ban? I've never understand the shadow banning.
What they do, I'm sure Brother Muslim Apologist probably knows more. What they do is the content that you put out, especially if you put Palestine in the title or as a name anywhere in the heading or anywhere within your channel, or Gaza, for some reason that just doesn't get reached out. There's people who subscribe to my channel, and when I do a show like this, they don't even get a notification that I'm going live. And if I do a show on something else, they get a notification. So it's very interesting, it really is. And I think now the fact that with Google and other main companies, I think they all are funding Israel. They all are behind this propaganda, and putting Palestine as a terrorist state or whatnot. And a lot of the big media companies are being caught out now. And unfortunately, we're still sleeping. I think the Muslim Ummah, we are still too tied in the dunya. We're still doing our own thing. And, it's quite heartbreaking when you notice that a lot of the people are still sleeping. They don't understand what's taking place. And one thing I don't want to happen, even though a year has nearly come to pass, that we start to forget the situation in Palestine and the suffering, because it's coming to a year and people will just totally fade away, and that's my worry.
And so that's why it's important that we keep this alive and keep the Palestinian resistance alive, and certainly the onslaught and genocide against the Palestinian people, that needs to be perpetually kept alive.
Well said. Muslim apologists, final words to you before we wrap the show up.
Yeah, I think both of you are doing good work, alhamdulillah. And I guess something that I need to point out, there is this channel called the Electronic Intifada. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with it. They do coverage of the conflict, I think almost daily. Yeah, so
yes,
I've heard that they have been shadow banned too. I think they were threatened with a ban too by YouTube, but somehow they have persevered. And my take on that is that you shouldn't just be sharing links on YouTube. You should actually have social media accounts like Facebook and X, Twitter, and Instagram and all this, and you should blast this all out to this other social media as well to beat the shadow ban. Because if you just rely on YouTube algorithms, then YouTube will probably bring down your video and it won't show.
No, I think Brother Mohammed got alternative platforms like Twitch and so on. You do have.
I've got Rumble. I've got Twitch, but when I go on StreamYard, I only can access 3 destinations. For me to upgrade, I've got to pay a bit extra.
Yeah, and I will also encourage those in the chat to also, you know, share and publish the links as well to forums and to other places as well apart from social media, because that's actually the secret of digital marketing. Yeah, so you need to
Yeah,
get links pointing everywhere. Yeah.
This is the electronic intifada that we've mentioned, the Muslim apologists have mentioned. As you can see here, regular updates, blogs, opinions, analysis. Here's family forced to take measures after daughter contracts hepatitis A in Palestine. Polio, unheard of. Look at these. Look at some of these issues. Did Israel vaporize a school, family, and his friends? So up-to-date results by these particular individuals, these opinions and analysis by various people. And of course, I've got various blogs by different individuals that are out and writing for the electronic intifada, the Ali Abunima, Michael F. Brown, David Cronin, Omar Karmi, and various other individuals. So have a look at this website. You go to electronicintifada.net. Excellent. For those who want to, it's probably, you won't, if you type in on Google, sometimes it doesn't open it. It doesn't lead you to it. So here is the actual particular website address, and you just go to electronicintifada.net, get updated news daily in terms of what happens daily in Palestine, sexual abuse revelations, letter from a jail, Palestine activists, and a lot of these opinion pieces and analysts are essentially by non-Muslims. I mean, they're Jewish. They're Jewish features on this, Jewish writers, Jewish activists that are basically exposing the Israeli state, the Israeli regime, exposing Netanyahu, exposing the right-wingers. Have a look at that site and look at some of the other material that we regularly share and expose it to your friends, your neighbors, and so on. And so that you can basically be the source of this kind of alternate information, challenging the corporate media out there.
SubhanAllah, we'll just end on this question for you, Brother Yusuf. Can you see the question there from Joe Baz?
Yeah, it's have you read the case of Israel, a study of polygamy? No, I have not, by Roger Gorodi. It's strange that you mention Roger Gorodi. I must get a copy of that book, by the way. But as I understand, Gorodi, if I'm not understanding, he was awarded a particular prize. Was it the King? The name rings a bell, but I haven't read the particular book. Where are we? That I came up with his particular name. Yeah, Roger Gorodi, in fact, happened to be a Muslim, and he was the winner of the King Faisal Award the very same year that I think Ahmed Deedat won the King Faisal Award for international service to Islam. So, back then it wasn't a massive fanfare like it is today with all the other corporate support and sponsorship. But in 86, when Ahmed Deedat won the King Faisal Award for service to Islam, Roger Gorodi, I believe, I think won the same year or the previous year. I can't recall exactly. But I haven't read the book itself, but I highly recommend the writings of Roger Gorodi. And certainly it is if it's written by him, you can be well assured that it's good research material.
Okay. We've got to end the show. SubhanAllah, this is my second show for today. So
you seem tired down, Mohammed,
I am tired. SubhanAllah, I've been very busy the last couple of days with studies and so forth. But alhamdulillah. Brother Yusuf, thank you for joining us. Inshallah, we'll do it again next week. Muslim apologist. Inshallah, looking forward to meeting you on Saturday for the upcoming debate. This Saturday, 5 p.m. on Cobb FF. The Muslim apologist will be debating Matthew regarding the origins of sin. And stay tuned for that. Just go to my channel. The thumbnail is already up. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Your brother Mohammed from Cobb FF. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.